Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Family Treehouse, a podcast series brought to you by Storied, where I chat with people that have a passion for genealogy, storytelling, or both. I'm your host, Heather Haunert, and today I am so excited about our guest today. This guest is one, the first time I met her, I've only met her one other time from this time that we were chatting. And the first time I met her, I knew she was a kindred spirit. So I'm super stoked to chat with her today. We have Maureen Taylor of the Photo Detective. Maureen has written books, she's made television appearances, been featured in world-renowned magazines and newspapers. She is the expert when it comes to family photos. So Maureen, welcome to our podcast.
Thank you so much, Heather. It's wonderful to be here. And I feel the same way. When we spoke, we just went on and on.
Yeah, we just clicked.
We
Uh,
just clicked.
so this will be fun today. I'm looking forward to it. So, Maureen, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about your background? How did you get started in family history, storytelling, and especially that focus in photos? I'm just fascinated to learn about that today.
So I was interested. I'm one of the rare people that you might meet who is interested in family history when they were a kid.
Yeah.
I have my little baby notes on in a notebook. I kept them because I didn't want to get rid of them, even though I'm like, well, I don't really need these anymore. They're just, so cute, my old school handwriting and the whole
Yes.
bit. And obviously, I didn't learn very much at that point, but it's an interest of mine and it has maintained an interest. I've maintained an interest in family history all along. Uh, Even in, college, we had an assignment, what were we going to research? And one of the options was your family history. And I was like, oh, this is going to be a great assignment. I already done the work, right?
Yeah.
This is easy. So I picked that and did that. And just continued professionally. I worked as a photo curator and a reference librarian, helping people with their family history or local history. Um, I love photographs, and my mom used to take out boxes of pictures and show them to us and tell us who was in them, but also the stories behind them.
Yeah.
And so it was never for me about, okay, this is a pretty picture. It's what is this pretty picture saying?
Yeah.
How can I find out the details about that?
Yeah.
Um, and, as a curator, I came across all kinds of different pictures.
Oh, yeah.
But I will say that since I've been the photo detective, that the material that are in archives, they're nice, but it doesn't hold a candle to what people have in their private family collections, the things that people have held onto for generations. It's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you find it hard? I think for me, photo wise, one of the hardest things that I do is go into an antique store or a flea market and find photos that people have just gotten rid of that it breaks my heart to see those. So I usually snag a few when I'm in those places just so I feel like I can save them. Um,
Right. Well, I have a
so,
guest room closet full of those, Heather.
yeah, do you?
I do. Uh, but it breaks my heart as well when I see people advertising in genealogy groups on Facebook that they have
Yeah,
these photographs. They don't know who they are. They've come down in the family. And does anybody want them? They want to get rid of them.
yeah,
Because I've been lecturing on this topic for a really long time. It is possible to figure out who's in those
yeah,
photographs. I mean,
yeah,
not all of them, right? We
right.
all have mystery images, but
Yeah,
it is possible using family history and the clues in the photographs and what people know and don't think that they know to put names with those pictures so they
yeah,
don't have to be gotten rid of.
yeah,
The things that are in antique shops, I've tried to reunite them. There's that
yeah.
whole photo reunion movement
Yes,
on Facebook,
absolutely.
and these people are doing some wonderful work. But whenever I buy a photograph and then I go out and research it, I never find any descendants.
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
they're there for a reason.
yep.
Um, there was a guy was it on Twitter or was it on Instagram? Anyway, he tagged me. Somebody told him to tag me, and he had all of these photographs. Now, hold on for a minute, from the 1970s. that he had
Wow.
found. And there's snapshots and albums and things.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
uh, he was like, help me, find these people. And I said, how do you even know that they want them?
Yeah.
Because you reunite like modern day photos with people. Those are people that just got rid of those pictures.
Right.
Those are their lifetimes or their parents' lifetimes. They don't want them. So there's been a lot of a lot of likes on my little. Maybe they don't even want them little
Yeah.
up finger things.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny.
What is your favorite photo that you have in your collection? Like for your family, what is your favorite? I didn't tell
Oh
you this
God, I
question
have
ahead of time, so I'm
so
taking you
many
off guard.
favorites, but I will say one of my favorites is the fact that I had all of um, our home movies digitized.
Oh,
Okay,
great idea.
so the home movies, I was telling my cousins the other day that they need to come over and watch the movies of them being little kids at Christmas,
Oh,
because while a picture tells a story, the movie elevates it to a whole nother level where you get to see the personalities of people,
yeah,
clowning in front of the camera. So a still from one of those, I think, is my current favorite.
yeah.
Or my first birthday party surrounded by all these people that are, of course, no longer here.
Oh.
Yeah.
Do you have, and you can tell me later and always let me know and I'll attach it. I would love to know where you had them digitized because that is definitely a question that we get. I mean, at Storied, we don't digitize and we video. But if you have that information, I would love to attach that in the notes for the show because
Sure.
people do ask that question. So that'd
Sure.
be awesome.
Sure. The
Maureen,
most frustrating photo in my collection, I'll tell you about that one.
oh yes, definitely.
Because everyone wants to say, oh, she's the photo detective. Everything must be, do I have it right here?
Identified.
I think not, but it is, there are two photographs in my dad's side of the family, and they came to me, and he never spoke about them. We found them later. My mom found them and said, oh, I remember these. Your dad told me that this is his dad. And I was like, okay, there's 30 people in this photograph. This is his dad. Okay, great. Did he happen to say who anybody else was?
Yeah.
It's a picnic out in the woods, and it's all boys
Oh,
and men, and there are oars, so you know that they're out there, on a boat. There's
yeah.
watermelon on the table. I figured out some of the people. I think
Yeah.
some of the other people are friends and colleagues.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's the most frustrating photograph because it's like,
Yeah.
really, that one person, that's it. That's not helping me much.
And of course, no one wrote on the back of it who it was or anybody in the photo.
No, no one wrote on the back of it.
What's the time frame on that one, Maureen?
About let's see, 1890. It's about 1900.
Okay. Oh, that's amazing. Do you have an idea of where the picture is taken?
Well, I know where the family lived, and I know that there's a park nearby, and
Yeah.
I think it was probably taken in that area
Yeah.
because that was an area that my mom and dad used to visit all the time.
Yeah.
So I think, you have to think about the patterns in your family when you're looking at your photographs as well. Like,
Yeah.
where did they live, but also what were their habits?
Right.
They always went to the same place. So it must be around there, but it's, out in the woods. So there's
Yeah.
nothing,
Yeah.
there's nothing to help me with that.
Yeah.
There's no building I can look at.
Yeah, right. And
Yeah,
and that things have significantly changed nature-wise in 100 years.
probably.
So, uh, so Maureen, tell us why you think storytelling, and you can incorporate the photos because I do think that for me is a key piece of it. Why is storytelling such an important part of family history?
Oh, when I first started genealogy, it really was all about the facts.
Yeah,
You had to get all the dates and just move backwards and forget the story.
yeah,
But the story tells you so much more about not only the people, but your family and how they evolved, and
yeah,
and what's your place in the family. whether you're a biological child or an adopted child, or I mean, what's your role? What's your spot? The photographs and the storytelling, all those facts. I know next week I'm going on a little family history vacation of sorts.
Fun.
And it's been fascinating to learn about the places that my mom's ancient ancestors
Mhm.
lived.
Yeah.
And already I have learned things about those people by digging into the story that I didn't know.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just okay. So people make quilts. Think of your story as a word quilt and a fact quilt of your family.
Yeah.
Let me give you an example. So my great grandfather, my great grandfather, Harry Mansfield, right? That was his middle name, Mansfield. And
Mhm.
it drove me crazy. Okay, great. I've always known he's Harry Mansfield. That's my grandmother told me her father was Harry Mansfield.
Yeah.
And by digging around and studying all the little things about the family, including like siblings of that person and descendants of that person, it's an interesting story and one that's intriguing. And I still haven't quite figured out. But Harry Mansfield's mother and father eloped with her sister and her boyfriend, who
Yeah.
was John Mansfield.
Oh.
And I'm like, you named your kid after a guy your sister married briefly. And you eloped. What's the story?
There's got to be one.
He's got to be one. But in filling in all the blanks, I looked at, and they went by boat because, I live in the New England area. So there's lots
Yeah.
of water, bodies of water. You have to, the shorter path is often by water, not by
Yeah.
road. And so I learned about what transportation systems there were and who used them.
Yeah.
Um, Mansfield is still a mystery to me, not the
Mm.
name, but the guy.
Yeah.
And what the towns were like. Why did they travel all the way up to Salem, Massachusetts to get married? Well, only by putting the information together and digging into the story
Yeah.
did I discover that their aunt lived there.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Um,
makes sense.
but you just know there's a bigger tale there. If I could
Yeah.
only find a letter.
Yeah. Yeah. I always like to look in newspapers because usually, so what time frame was that then? 18.
1860s.
Okay, I was gonna say mid 1800s. And
Yeah.
sometimes you can find, because it was so scandalous, elopements in newspapers because,
Right.
they think people ran away and they were just going to get married. So
Well, let's just say that Harry was born a month later.
yeah. Oh, great story.
Yeah.
Maureen, when you start to write a story, do you have a process, or is it just kind of haphazard? Do you start with a photo? How do you go about that process?
Right. I mean, certainly there's different kinds of storytelling. So, as the photo detective, I'm known for the stories that I write about photographs. So, I'll start with the picture and, the basic building blocks of telling a story that everybody learned, and hopefully everybody learned in grade school: the who, what, where, when, and why. And in my mind, I will start by like, what do we know about that? But also, what other questions am I trying to answer that would help fill in the story? And where is that going to go? There was an interesting photograph I worked on. Well, there's been a couple in the last couple of years that I've worked on. One is one that had an argument on the back. This
Mm,
is dad. This isn't dad. Dad was successful. Dad was a loser. Um, and all the research I had to do to fill that in, it was just a paper trail that was unbelievable for this man.
wow.
Um, and then there was another one of a little dog. And the little dog on the back, somebody had written the whole story. This was mom's favorite dog when she lived next door and they gave the address and the whole bit. The missing bit of the story, because I asked, like, okay, so who's the family? Why were they living there? What did they do? What kind of dog is this? Whatever. Um, was that the dog actually had belonged to the mom.
Oh,
So yes, it was her favorite dog. It was her dog.
Yeah,
But
right.
that never got passed down in the family. And with the argument, I had to figure out, well, who are these two people that are arguing? One gave their name, one did not. Um, why are they posed there? There, it was in Brooklyn. What are they doing? Who else is in the picture? Which I was never able to fill in all the blanks. But every single photograph that I work on and every story that you write generates a unique set of questions. Sure, you have the who, what, where, when, and why, but then you can deepen that inquiry. What records are available? What does that say?
Yeah.
And in the case of the argument, the guy that signed his, oh, what did he sign? He signed one of the court papers for the guy's citizenship, and it actually became his father-in-law.
Wow.
But only when you ask the questions and do the research. And then I like to do timelines first.
Mhm.
Before I
Yes.
write a story, I always start with a timeline.
Yeah.
Like this happened when, and this is the document I have, and have I really looked at it all? Krista Cowan of Ancestry.com always says you should transcribe each document that you find. And she's
Yep.
absolutely right, because it's so easy. It's so easy to overlook some little detail. There was a brick wall in my family for a long time, and I had accumulated some land records for this person, but I got distracted with work or whatever, never looked at it. And then I said, oh, well, let me go back to this brick wall. And I said, oh, I don't think I've ever read this land record. And I read it, and I called a friend up and I was like, are you kidding me? His grandfather gave him the land and the guy's name is in the document,
Yeah.
and I missed that.
Yeah.
So always worth doing additional research.
Yeah.
If you don't find what you're looking for at first, go back and do it again a little bit
Yeah.
later, because as you know, and I know, new stuff is online all the time.
Oh, yeah.
But also, with a fresh mind, after you've done more research, go back and reread the documents that you find, because I guarantee you've missed something.
Yeah.
Because that's
Well,
a long answer to a short
no,
question about how I
no, that
start.
was good.
Basically, I start with timelines.
Yeah, I love a timeline. I agree with you wholeheartedly. I do that almost every time
Yeah.
I'm creating a story. And I think too that, you said earlier, and I just true for our generation that it was always about the names and the dates
Yeah.
and not necessarily the story. And I think you just get so focused on that. And that's why when people look at a record or even photo with information, they just get stuck on the facts and they don't want to look at the whole picture and get all of those great little tidbits that they can find in there. So
Well, it's a lot of work, Heather.
it is.
Yeah, it's
You
a
are
lot of
right.
work. And if
Yeah.
people want to know how to research their families, certainly my book, The Family Photo Detective,
Yeah.
can help you, lead you through the steps. But one of the things, I know we're talking on the Storied podcast, but one of the things I like about Storied is that tagging of individuals. So you can
Yes.
say whether or not they're neighbor or friend or family or, colleague or whatever, because
Yeah.
that will help you later on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I love that. And with our new books that we have now, I have one that I did on my grandfather or great grandfather. And the tagging is key to me because with that you tag the people in your tree
Yeah.
or friends or whomever, and then you have an index of all of those people that were important and part of those stories. So I do love that. It's a good feature.
Yeah.
Maureen, tell us about are there any resources or tools that you would recommend for people that are just kind of starting out? We do have a lot of people at Story that are just entirely new to family history in general. So any tips on things they can use to get started?
Well, it's important. I just did a whole series in my podcast on advice that people would give to
Yeah.
beginners.
Oh,
If you
yeah.
were the beginner, what advice would you want to
Yeah.
know if you started all over? And some of the advice was, okay, and even professionals do this. If you're researching in a new area that you haven't researched in before, right? we will watch seminars and read articles because we need to know the background, right?
Yeah.
The good news is there's so much free content out there right now, or even low cost content, that
Yeah.
it's easy. The entry point for a beginner is so easy.
Yeah.
I think of Legacy Family Tree web webinars, for instance.
Love them.
There's hundreds of them out there,
Yes.
if not thousands. The Roots Tech conference
Yes.
always has good short um, videos that you can
Yeah.
watch. Uh, Books. I think about books. A lot of the basic books are now online as wikis.
Yeah.
So that takes care of that. Certainly if you're looking for photographs, I would, say my book
Yeah. For
is
sure.
good.
Yeah.
And one of the pieces of advice is take good notes right from the beginning. And
Yes.
whatever you use, if you use storied to do that because you want to tell the story because it's easy to make the book, do that. But always document what you're doing as you go. Always have a research log when you get
Yes.
started. And Family Tree Magazine is also a great source of
Yeah.
that kind of information.
Yeah. Yeah. Good quick articles on there. Yeah. I think the research log, I talk about that a lot when I'm chatting with people. It's so important. I mean, we've all been guilty that we've done that research and didn't write it down, and then we have to go do it again.
Yeah, we've all done it.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a good one, important one.
Yeah, that's a good one. Also, start with your oldest family members first.
Yes,
Yeah.
for sure. For sure. Maureen, this is always my favorite part. I love when somebody will share with me their favorite family story. And everybody always says, I always preempt it because they always say, well, this is my favorite story right now.
That's it. This is my favorite story right now.
So tell us about it.
So to get ready for this sort of mini trip, I decided I wanted to visit some of the sites that my mom's um, 17th century ancestors in Quebec were from. And I have pretty much the joke is if you're French Canadian in New England, you are related,
Yeah.
right? Everybody's related. Everybody's a cousin. That's the way it works.
Yeah.
And so I was telling somebody I was going up to Quebec and that I was really interested in these early ancestors because I want to see what's left and just get a sense for the place, because I think a sense of place is very important when you're writing or understanding your ancestors. What were their lives like based on where they lived and what they did?
Yeah.
And this friend came back and she said, well, guess what? We are actually related. And I said, I'm no surprise on that. And then she told me that our ancestor was the first woman executed in New France. I was like, she goes, this is a story for you. Yeah.
Oh my
My God.
gosh.
I was like, what did she do? Well, she killed her son-in-law. Her and her husband conspired to kill their son-in-law, who was not being very good to their daughter, who was
Wow.
very young. I guess in New France, the rule was young girls, really young girls, could be
Yeah.
married.
Yeah.
And he wasn't very nice to her. And
Yeah.
so the parents decided this had to come to an end
Yeah.
and
Take care of
conspired. I was like, great, a criminal. I love
it.
it.
And I think people shy away from those stories, and they shouldn't, because it's just part of our story. Um,
Well, your ancestors are not you,
right, right.
right?
Yeah,
You are the sum total of them, but you are not them. You are not making the same choices or doing the
right,
same thing.
right.
Um, yeah, no. So it was a long time ago that happened.
Wow. So
Yeah, that
was
was a
the dad executed too, or just the mom?
yes. Yeah,
Ah,
yeah, yeah. I think the mom was. The dad definitely was executed. Yeah, they were
wow.
sentenced to death by rope. So they
Oh,
hanged them.
oh, oh my goodness. What a
Yeah.
story.
Yeah. Well,
Wow.
they lived out, and the sort of ironic part of the whole thing is they lived out, on a farm, like away from everybody else.
Yeah.
And so the day that this sort of comes up and they impulsively do this, there
Hmm.
just happened to be two witnesses walking by on this rural road.
Yeah. What are the chances of
What
that?
are the chances? Talk about bad luck.
Oh my
Uh,
goodness.
so, that's a good story. The one about
Yeah.
Mansfield is a good
Yes.
story.
Yeah.
Um, you
Yeah.
know, not all of our ancestors are good people, and
No.
some are better than others. There
Yeah.
is one branch of that family, not the same family, down the line.
Yeah.
Um, and somebody found an article in a newspaper for me about the descendants of my mom's, ancestors, some of my mom's, like I think her great grandfather, perhaps, and his wife, and they live not far from here. And it's an interesting story about them and all of their children and where they were from and how long they were married. And it was just cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Personal details that we didn't
Yes.
have before.
Right.
So, I mean, I know you're looking for some funny story. I don't really have any funny stories.
No, I am definitely not. I accept any kind of stories. And I think again, I think it's important to tell all stories. So I love that you shared that one because that one,
Yeah. Well, family history is ever evolving.
yeah,
And I've done some research on my husband's family, and his family and my family were in Limerick, Ireland at the same time in the 1700s. And I'm like, what are the chances? It's small. They must have known each other.
yeah, that would be crazy. That would
Yeah.
be amazing.
Yes. We're not related in any way, but I was
Yeah.
like, they had to have known each other
Yeah, for sure.
for
That's
sure.
great. Well, Maureen, as we wrap up here, are there any other tips, tricks, or pieces of advice you would like to leave with our audience today?
If they are thinking about starting their family history, I would say go for it, because it is a hobby for the rest of your life.
Yeah,
It is not where you get to a point where you research and then you're done, because you're
yeah,
never done.
right. Yeah,
But also, I would advise them along the way to produce something that people can read.
yeah,
Stories, little booklets like the one on your desk. Don't wait until you're done, because you're never done.
yeah,
And
yeah,
if you don't do it, your research will be lost
yeah,
and somebody will start all over.
yeah, yeah. Agreed. Good
So
advice.
go for it. It's
Yeah,
a great hobby.
yeah, it is. I love that you're never done though. I mean, for me, that's part of the excitement because I would be, what would I do if I was finished with everything? So I like that part of it.
Yeah, there's always something else to look at.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Maureen, I just want to say thank you for taking time with me today. It has been such a pleasure, and your passion for our field is evident. So thank you. I'm honored, and this has been great.
Thank you so much, Heather.
Until next time, friends, embrace the power of your family's untold tales and embark on a journey of discovery. Let the ink flow and the words dance as you weave together the threads of your ancestors' lives. Start writing your family stories today and let their voices echo through the generations to come at story.com. Have a great day, everyone. And that brings us to the end of this episode of the Family Treehouse, where we celebrate the power of storytelling and preserving our family legacies. Storied is more than just a platform for sharing stories. Dive into those historical records and newspapers, discovering the hidden gems that bring your ancestors to life. Add branches to your family tree, connecting the dots between generations. Thank you for joining us on this storytelling journey. Your stories matter, and through story, they have the power to resonate across time and touch the hearts of generations to come. Keep uncovering your family's history and keep the spirit of storytelling alive with Storied.